Hello. Welcome to another Investor Week live Q&A. We're just waiting for some folks to join. We'll do some early introductions. Here with me today is Dominique Stubbs, Securities Advisor at RF Bank, and Keith from the Bahamas International Stock Exchange. Hi, Keith. Lovely.
Hello, everybody.
Dominique, thanks for coming.
Not a problem.
Just waiting on a few more folks to join us here before we start what's going to be a very, very exciting conversation about investing, right? And everyone can invest. And so we're going to be answering some questions that we got throughout the week. And we're also going to be having your questions here live. So feel free to use the Q&A option and we'll get to those, okay? So just having a few more people join and then we're going to get the convo going. So,
I think we should probably just jump in.
I think we should jump in. Okay?
Let's go.
Do a recap later for those who join a bit later. So, hello again. My name is Jackie Claire, and we have arrived at the end of Investor Week, brought to you by RF Bank and Trust and the Bahamas International Securities Exchange. We hope you've been following along this week with all the tips, strategies, and key learnings that will help you become an investor too. We will close out this week's activities by answering your burning questions about investing. Joining me is Keith Davies from the Bahamas International Securities Exchange. He's the CEO, and Dominique Stubbs, Securities Investment Advisor at RF. Welcome, gentlemen, again.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
So let's jump right in. One of the questions we got earlier this week. What exactly is investing and how is it done?
Well, I mean, Jackie, I can jump in there. And I think if we take a step back and I want to demystify this financial stuff and all of these things that people talk about investing. We know how to invest as humans.
Yes.
We invest every day. When you go to the gym, when you go to the store, when you go to school. So the gym is you're investing in your health. The store, you're investing in food to cook and to nourish yourself. And when you go to school, you're investing in your future, your education, and learning. So investing on the financial side is saying, okay, I'm going to take my money and I'm going to put it to work for me. And I think if you think of it that way, it's not that hard for you to do. The question is, how do I do it? What are the steps that I take to do it? And who can I trust to show me how it's done?
Exactly. And if I can jump in, Keith, I think you definitely hit it out of the park. Great example as well. And great way in demystifying the idea of investing. On a regular basis, I meet with people and they always have this preconceived notion that, investing is so difficult or so complicated, or even that they need to start, saving money. And I always tell them, no, it's nothing like that. And in terms of how to get it done, this is where we here at RF, we come into play. And it's especially for me, it's, our job to ensure that we educate the general public on investing and making sure that they understand that this is a pretty much straightforward and easy process, not that difficult, and definitely not that scary.
One question I hear a lot is, I don't make enough now. Give me a couple years,
Yeah.
When is the best time to start?
Well, for me, at least.
You start, I'll come right after you.
All right. Well, for me, at least, I jokingly tell people yesterday is the best time to start, just so they can understand that, if whatever you have right now, just get started, in terms of the saving and putting aside money, you can do that while having an account open, while having your money work for you. So for me, I always encourage people that no matter where they are, obviously I would ask certain questions to kind of gauge their financial situations and their financial well-being at the time. But I always encourage people just to jump right in right away, just get it started.
For me, the investing is a mindset. It's not an action or an activity. You have to start think of investing as taking those small positive incremental steps towards your future. And so, I've always heard that I don't have enough money. No, if you have 2 cents, actually five now because we don't have a cents anymore. If you have 2 cents, you can put 5 cents away. So it's not about the amount; it's about the process, the journey, and thinking about what I need to do for tomorrow. And I think, Dominic, you said it right. It's not about, don't think about if you're 20, nobody is thinking about 50. Nobody, you know? So I tell people, think about tomorrow, think about next week, eventually you'll get to next year. And then that mindset takes over.
Minimums. I am just coming to the market. What is the minimum amount that I can invest? Do minimums apply? And what is best for me to invest in as a new investor?
But let me say something, and then I want the RF to fill in the blank. As at there, each company has a journey for you in terms of what you can take and in terms of engaging them. So I always tell people, shop around, see what's out there, allow them to explain to you how you can engage them, because all of them are very accommodating. And when I say them, all of the broker dealer members of BISX, of which RF is one, talk to those individuals and they will allow you to put in a small amount incrementally, leading to a large amount, which will then benefit you. And RF, y'all can fill in the blank.
All right, now that we got the general answer, I'll come in with a more specific answer.
That's right.
If you were coming into RF just to get into one of our mutual funds, you can start off with as little as $500. If you were just opening up a brokerage account and you wanted to maybe purchase stock, or you may have wanted to purchase some of the Bahamas government registered stocks, the government bonds, you can start off with as little as $100. So a lot of times this is why when I hear people be like, oh, I need to save. No, you don't, and in a lot of instances, these people already have, if you're coming to me and you're questioning and you're asking about investing, in most instances, they have maybe a $500, $1,000 just sitting there. And that's a good amount to just get your feet wet, get started, get a good feel for it. And as you're ready and you get more comfortable, you can wade a little bit deeper into the water and start to put in more money. And as you become more, financially knowledgeable, you can even look towards other investment types and opportunities.
Perfect segue, Dominique. Other investment types. In the local market, what are all of the options that are available? And Keith, I want you to start talking about the listed securities that are available on BISX.
So I was bragging the other day. We BISX has about 98%, 99% of the equity market. I would say the debt market available for investors to invest in. And so we have many of the larger companies that people would be familiar with in terms of being able to access. And of course, when I say access, that means that those securities may be purchased and or sold through the exchange using one of our broker-dealer members. So, I'll let Dominic speak about some of the things, but I can run down some of the companies. But there are other vehicles you can use. And I say vehicles. There are other avenues you can take that allow you to invest in certain types of those securities on the exchange as well.
Nice segue, Keith. I appreciate that. And vehicles was actually an appropriate term because I would have used that as well. But if you wanted to, another way you can actually invest in some of the companies that Keith has brought up is you can invest in them through our mutual funds. The setup of our equity fund allows for that. You will have exposure to a lot of the bigger companies that are listed on BISX. So that is obviously one way outside of directly going into the market and purchasing shares of said companies as well. I've already mentioned also going into the central bank and purchasing government bonds, but there are other bond offerings that tend to come out to the market every so often. There's also, and to go more of the traditional route, to just point this out, a lot of Bahamians don't realize they've already been investing fixed term deposits.
That's
That's an
right.
investment vehicle. A lot of Bahamians, we understand, the value of real estate. And a lot of us have been investing in real estate. So, even if you feel and think, oh, I haven't been investing, you probably have already. You probably have a fixed term deposit, or you have maybe a piece of land that you intend to maybe put some income generating property on there. So, in a lot of instances, a lot of Bahamians are already involved in investing.
Dominique, you picked up a topic that has been we've been discussing it all Investor Week, and that of diversification.
Yes.
Okay, and so how explain to someone how they could view their portfolio, explain what a portfolio is, and how they could view their portfolio of investments, and how they could monitor that, manage that.
Okay, so for me, I would just compare, your portfolio as basically like a little basket. This is your basket, and this is where all of your investment goodies are located. So within your portfolio, you can be invested in stocks and shares in a company. You can be invested in bonds. You can purchase mutual funds. You can have a fixed term deposit. All of these things, all of these options, these investment options I've presented, for a more diverse portfolio, you can dabble in some of those to give yourself, because at the same time, me using the basket analogy kind of leads me into this. The old saying, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So you kind of give yourself that diversification provides you with some of that buffer in case maybe one of your investments does not perform towards the same levels that you were expecting. At least if you're invested in some other investment vehicle or option, and that performs well, you can buffer some of that loss over time.
I think it's important to point out here that I speak to people all the time, and they say, "Well, my money's in the bank, So let's hit this, and hit this hard, please, because you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
If you put $100 in the bank on January 1, and you do not touch it, and you come back to that on December 31st, you're going to be asking who stole from you.
Yeah,
Because you're going to have a lot less than $100, and you've done nothing.
Correct.
The point of that is holding money in its, I guess, the liquid format is expensive.
Yeah.
Because unless you have it under your mattress, which can be stolen, or somebody could borrow it. If you have kids, you know exactly what I mean. That money is going to be in an institution that's going to charge you a service fee for managing and holding that money and securing it. Therefore, diversification means taking that $100 and not putting it under your mattress where it's not doing anything. And we'll talk about inflation.
I was going to bring that up, by the way.
You're now $100 and give it to an entity and say, put it to work for me. And you're going to hear us say that all the time. Put it to work. Money can work. And so if it's not working, it's losing its value. And so over time, if we all look at the price of bread from 5 years ago to now, is it the same? No. It's probably higher. So that $100 that you could have bought 5 loaves of bread, well, guess what? You only can buy 2 if you did nothing. Therefore, diversification and investment allows you to take that $100, do something with it, spread it around in the areas that were just described, and put it to work for you.
I smirk because Keith used a similar example I tend to use whenever I bring up the fact that, by just having your money sit in the bank or sit under your mattress, you lose some of your purchasing power. Obviously, we're going to eventually get to inflation. But I usually use the example of Kong salad and the fact that Kong salad was once $5 and now you pay.
Really? In our lifetime?
Yeah, at least I remember when Kong salad was $5. You remember too, right, Keith?
I remember.
Okay, so, but yeah, excellent example with the bread. A lot of people don't understand the idea of you're putting your money to work, and understand that leaving it in the bank is not putting it to work.
Absolutely. We have a question from an entrepreneur, and he's an artist, and he's asking how he can make his money work for him. Ideas.
Well, I'll let the investing experts answer that.
that this is a bit of a difficult question if you're speaking specifically on how to monetize his art.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a situation where he is profiting from his artwork, it would be in his best interest to take that same money that he's making and putting it up and investing it and using the returns that he gets from it to further build his brand. I don't know where he may be at currently in terms of his his artwork, but the idea of investing in your art, in your work, and using true investing the money with us or someone else, but hopefully
Right.
with us. He can take that those returns and hopefully put back into his artwork, into his
Mm-hmm.
company, and hopefully he or she can see their artwork, and their brand, I should say, flourish even further.
There is, I don't know if it's widely known that you could leverage your investments. You could use them as collateral to maybe access capital, funding business growth, and so forth. Could we just talk a bit about that? The entrepreneur question kind of just led my thought there.
You're talking about in terms of the fact that if you own a security, you can then use that as a okay. When you invest in a company, and I pulled up the various companies, and I'm going to give them all a plug eventually through this.
I noticed you avoided calling out anyone in particular.
But I'm gonna do it, because it's BISX, and
Yes.
we love all our companies just as we love our broker dealers. But so if you're investing in AML or APD or Benchmark, for example,
Mhm.
when you hold and you have invested in those companies, you hold an asset, you hold something that has value. So you can turn around and walk into a financial institution and say, I have value in these companies to the tune of X amount of dollars based on what the market is saying that they're valued at today. That asset can be collateralized. That means that asset can be used to borrow and receive cash against for you to then deploy in another investment, your artworks, your art studio, art supplies, an event to display and sell your wares. And so it's a good thing to think about the types of investments you make that can benefit you in the future.
Absolutely. Any thoughts on that, Dominic?
Well, what I was thinking more so what you may have been alluding to is maybe even like something that we offer here in terms of the margin loans
Yes.
and using what you already have invested. And if you were in a situation where you may have needed some cash for whatever particular reason, you can borrow against your investments and you can take that same money and that capital and reinvest that. And then hopefully that ends up, like, once again, like we said, helping in terms of building the brand and creating more awareness of the artwork or whatever it is you may be trying to do.
Yeah.
You could also use it to expand your investment. So sometimes an investment opportunity comes up and your liquidity is not there. For some reason, your liquidity and the opportunity never align. And so you can actually borrow to access the opportunity and then repay, because when you have money, the opportunity would have passed. That's how it works. So there are many ways to leverage or your investments can work for you. So your money's working for you. You can also use your investments to work for you. You can just keep compounding the benefits of investing.
Very good point, Jackie.
So another question that we got: how to go about investing? What is the best way to begin? And what types of investments are considered startups? I think we've touched on each of one of those. So let's talk about the latter part of the question, the startups. What is considered good investment for a startup?
Now, when you say for a startup, as an individual starting up or a company that's a startup? Because it depends.
Let's talk about both, because we have a diverse crowd here with us this evening.
Okay. So the first time investor, they probably don't have a lot of money to invest right out of the gate. So the first thing that they need to do is be smart about where they place their money. I would highly recommend you get involved with a company like RF. That's the one thing that I always tell people is you don't put your money in anything that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And invariably, you may not understand a lot about what's happening in the market. So you need to go to an expert to hold your hand and point you in the right direction and give you that advice that is so needed to make that first step. So the first step is to find somebody that can provide you guidance and instruction on where to go. So that's step one. And what they do when you come to them.
Well, so I know for me, and you definitely hit the nail on the head. When you're talking about an individual who's just starting for the first time, a lot of it they're coming into it. They have little to no knowledge on what's going on. So one of the first things I try to do is I go over and I assess where's your knowledge base. What do you know? And once I figure that out, I would go into, okay, well, here's what I think works best for you. Here's how this works. And for me personally, just personal sentiment, for a first-time investor, I would definitely encourage them. You go into something that like a mutual fund. The investment decisions are removed. You don't have to make the investment decisions. You don't have to decide, well, we need to invest more money into, I think you mentioned APD or AML. That would be a decision that would be made by a highly qualified individual who understands, the markets and how they work. And at that point, my job would be to ensure that the person understands, look, this is the process. This is how it works. This is how you're going to make money. So they can understand, one, that this isn't some loom or anything like that. And then two, like you said, for me, I feel the same way. I don't like anyone to go into something that they don't have at least a very baseline understanding of what they're getting themselves into. At that point, then after that, I would try to assess, risk profile, like what's your risk tolerance like? Are you someone who's going to be more of an aggressive investor or conservative? Generally speaking, Bahamians are conservative by nature. That just seems to be the case. So trying to figure out those different, trying to figure out what's your risk tolerance like. But for a first-time investor, someone who's just starting up, I agree with Keith. Is definitely making sure that you, one, link up with someone who is knowledgeable and who can help hold your hand, as you said, and guide them through this process. And then two, making sure that they understand what it is that they're actually getting themselves involved in.
Jackie, I would also take the next step, talking about startup companies and what to invest in. So I just called off three names. There's Bahamas First, Bank of the Bahamas Property Fund, and Bahamas Waste. Okay, those are other mature companies that have been around for a while and have gone through the rigors of having to be listed on the exchange. And we can talk about what listing means. One thing that we need to talk about is, do I invest in a company that's new, out of the blocks, or something that's coming to the market that doesn't really have a lot of information available to me?
Yeah.
You mentioned the word risk. I always tell people, what's your tolerance for pain? They say, what do you mean? I say, well, if you put $100 on the table and I take it and run, that's 100. That's level 10 pain. That's level 10 pain. It's gone. There are investments that are just like that.
Exactly. Yep.
And so if you're going to invest in a company that is a startup that hasn't been analyzed, reviewed, tested, looked at by an RF, been questioned, and there's information that you can make an informed investment decision on. And I'm not talking fluff information. I'm not talking a pretty banner. I always call that the glossy effect. It's nice pictures, but is it going to return the investment over the time period that I'm looking for? And so when you're looking at a company that is new or not tested or reviewed, you must be extremely careful before you put your good hard-earned money, because that level 10 pain effect could come into play.
Yep.
So talk a bit, Keith, about listing and exactly what BISX does.
Excellent. You know what? Thank you, Jackie. Because people have said, right? What does BISX do? What y'all do? I don't get it. So the stock exchange is the location where company, I'll list some more: Cable Bahamas, Commonwealth Brewery, Commonwealth Bank, Kalina Holdings, and CIBC. Those companies have come to the exchange and said, we wish to be bound by and follow your rules. Your rules, these rules are supported by the law, which is the Securities Industry Act. The Securities Commission controls and manages the industry. BISX manages and controls its market. And when a company comes to BISX to list, they agree to follow a very, and I'll use it, very strict set of rules that talks about how they disclose, when they disclose, who their directors are, who their auditors are, where their securities can be traded, the value of those securities, who has access to those securities, and how and when they treat their shareholders fairly. So all of those things come into play at the stock exchange. And so when you see a notification in the paper telling you that a dividend has been paid, when it will be paid, when you see a notice that a director has changed, or the company has a major acquisition and the value of it was X, Y, and Z, all of that came about because of their relationship with BISX, and we would have ensured that that information got into your hands in a timely, coordinated, and full manner. And so the exchange is the place where we ensure that you get everything you need, and I'll always end with this, to make an informed investment decision. So you don't really see us in the front. We're making everything happen in the back. We're the market, we're the road, we're the vehicle that makes sure that you get what you need to be safe in our marketplace.
And I'll make a plug for you right here, Keith. For those of you who have, want to know more about investing, want to know more about the stocks that are available, please visit the BISX website. We'll provide that for you towards the end of live today, and learn some more information about not just the stocks, but the companies and information that will make you more informed, right? So
Yes.
I think one of the biggest themes coming out today is you need to be informed, and where you're not informed, the broker dealers, they have the experts and they can assist you with providing you with the information.
Correct.
Right? We have a question from Cecil Flowers on YouTube, and she's asking whether she can open an account with multiple brokers.
The short answer is yes. That's the short answer. And I love all my broker dealers, but I'm gonna throw some love to RF right now. RF is a wonderful option, and I invite you to explore that option with them. I tell people this all the time, and I think you all would not disagree. They should come in and test you. They should come in and see what you have for them and find out whether what you're saying is in fact the truth, and whether they can feel comfortable and trusted with you. And I think if they came in, they would find that to be the case, because I've heard, from about all of my members, but I've heard very good things about RF. So they need to come, touch, talk, and I guarantee you that they'll find one that they like.
The topic of generational wealth. We see it a lot on social media these days. And someone is asking, how do they establish generational wealth?
It's a pretty loaded question.
Yes.
Pretty much it's loaded to me because, we all have our own views on what generational wealth would be. But to me, and just to simplify the question, establishing wealth, it should really be what we're talking about here. And everything we have discussed so far are ways for you to begin the steps to establishing wealth. Whether you decide that you want to go and you want to open up a brokerage account and you want to go and purchase shares in companies, that some of the companies that Keith has already listed, and some of them have done extremely well over the last few years. Doctors Hospital and I know Bahamas First, I believe, have done pretty well, if I can remember correctly. That's one way. You can also you can come into us, you can invest in some of our mutual funds. All of you could set up a personal pension plan, all of these things. These are ways for you to establish wealth. Now, where that wealth goes is entirely up to you and the decisions that you make over time. A lot of people feel like, oh, if I invest, I'm gonna make $1 million. I mean, you can, but I mean, but it's honestly all what you put into it. If you consistently contribute and you put money into your portfolios, and if you make the right investment decisions, if you somehow figure it out, like, okay, well, I'm gonna invest in this company, and this company has they have a great year or something like that. Everything kind of hinges down to your individual decision making. However, if you want to establish wealth, all of the advice that we've given so far are different ways for you to begin that process.
I think Jackie, the way you establish generational wealth means that you have wealth today and you have wealth for future generations
your
of
kids and your grandkids and their kids
so
too.
So let's look at it logically. So if you don't do anything today, you won't have anything tomorrow. As simple as that. So if you want generational wealth, the best thing you can do is to start taking action and investing in your future today, so that you can have something that your children can have in the future, and then your grandchildren. Additionally, you should invest in their perception of what wealth is. Educate them, give them the tools to accumulate and acquire generational wealth. So wealth is mind, knowledge, and understanding. And so I would say that, the best things that they can do are do what you said, but also take the time to give those persons that they want to have that wealth the tools to continue to perpetuate it.
Knowledge is wealth.
That's it.
Knowledge is wealth. One question from a Facebook person: how long does it take on average to see good returns when investing aggressively?
Excellent question. Boy, so the short answer is it all depends on the market. But that is the key to the answer. Markets go up, markets go down, markets stay flat. However, history has shown us that over time, if you invest in a market, that more than likely, if you're properly diversified, that you would begin to see returns over the longer term. So whenever I've talked to people, I say, you look at your investments every year, but you should expect to see some real activity 3-5 years down the road.
So it's not a sprint.
No, and I think that's the issue there with most people when they get into investing. They expect it to happen like this without realizing, and I try to tell people this all the time, it's a long-term thing. I know sometimes we use, that 5-year mark as a little benchmark in terms of how long we encourage people to be invested. But people, in most, what we all just need to understand is, like you said, Jackie, it's not a sprint, and Keith pointed out that over time, the long term, more often than not, you're going to actually, actually generate pretty good returns. And I like the point that you mentioned, Keith, because in certain instances, it really just comes down to timing. I can give examples of different companies or even some of our funds where if you got into it, I know in one particular fund, I went into it at one point, and over like maybe 12 to 14 months, may have seen about a 33% return on my investment. And not all of that was just timing, versus now, because, the markets, this is more so this is our international equity sub fund. The international markets they're down. And because of that fund in particular has suffered some losses. If they were to enter it now, and if they were to enter it at the beginning of the year, they may have seen some substantial losses. So I think a big point and a key point you mentioned there is timing is very important as well. In terms of what, maybe what the person was asking about.
Well, there's also the other issue. There's a couple of things. Let's talk about what is aggressive investing.
Yeah.
As well. So if we talked about diversification. So I'm going to throw some more companies out there: Doctors Hospital, Emera, FamGuard, Fidelity Bank. Sounds familiar?
Yeah.
Focal, Finco, and JS Johnson. If you were to invest all of your money into just one of those companies, that's risky.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is you're hoping that that single company is going to give you the return that you're hoping to receive. Or you can say, RF, help me diversify. And they put you into a mutual fund. And what a mutual fund is it's a company that invests pools of money into a variety of other securities. All those companies that I mentioned, they pick and choose, and they pick for you the best ones. And so your money goes along with the ride with the other persons, and you make a return. So whereas you can't do one investment in one, they help you to do many. So that helps. So aggressive, one, helping to be less aggressive, but also focused aggressive in terms of which companies to pick. RF helps you through the mutual fund. There's also another thing. We talked about investment. Going and gambling, that's an investment. That's an investment, is it not? It's a poor investment, but it's investment. And it's instant gratification. You put $1 down, you win, lose, done. You're going to lose more than you win. But it's this instant gratification that people are seeking. And so for us, investment is not gambling. Investment is making informed decisions about what you do with your money to receive a reasonable return. And so the higher the risk of an investment, yes, the greater reward, but the greater chance for you to have that 10-point threshold where you lose all your money. So I like to break it down for people like that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Miss Marshall on Facebook is asking, is using one investment company to handle all investments considered putting your eggs in one basket instead of using multiple successful investment companies to handle different investment portfolios?
Great question again. I think when we say putting all your eggs in one basket from the investment standpoint, that means directing all of your money into one company, whereby whatever they do is your outcome. In terms of putting your eggs into one basket with an investment firm, it is not the same thing. A firm like RF, for example, is a member of BISX. That means that they had to go through a very rigorous process of review and analysis to ensure that they were suitable to be members of the exchange. They also had to pass a number of financial thresholds in terms of how they operate, how sound the companies were. In terms of their expertise, these individuals had to be vetted and viewed to make sure that they were competent to be able to provide you the services. And they also had to be regulated and registered with the Securities Commission of the Bahamas. So in terms of your faith and confidence in their abilities, they are qualified to do that by virtue of the law and also their membership with the exchange. So that would not be putting all your eggs in one basket with an investment company. Now, in terms of the services that a company offers, if a company cannot handle the type of investments that you're seeking, then yes, you would want to spread yourself around to those different companies. But again, as I've always said, do your homework on the companies that are available, and then you will be able to make that informed decision about who you want to work with.
Awesome.
Agreed.
We could not end today. And we still have some more time, so please feel free to continue to submit your questions. But we could not end today without talking about the big C, crypto. Can I get cryptocurrency on BISX?
The answer is no, not at the moment. We do not invest in the crypto market. We understand it very well. And if I tell you stories of all the crazies that came to us trying to sell us crypto, you might get scared. But we understand it very well. We're looking at it. And but that is, short answer is that is not available on the exchange.
Okay.
It's definitely a question that I know we get a lot over here as well. But I would also say, and this is backtracking a little bit, something you said earlier. What I realize a lot of times, people don't necessarily understand what exactly is happening with crypto or how crypto works. And I would say, for anyone who may be interested, do your homework, please. You don't want to put your hard-earned money into something that you don't completely understand. And especially something that is more or less on the more volatile side in terms of investment options. I'm not discouraging anyone from getting into crypto, but I'm just encouraging people to, one, do your homework and just be careful. You don't want to just, this is definitely one time that I say you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. At least, and that's what we meant.
But I'm going to be a little harder. Stay away from crypto. Not because unless you are prepared to lose all of your money, stay away from crypto.
And I tell people,
cryptocurrency exists in an unregulated market. Let me give you a perfect example. You have persons that are invested in various cryptocurrencies. They can get on a screen and a stage and publish, oh, I think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. They can make any claim they want. And that could affect the price because people follow the herd. And then they could turn around tomorrow, and when that price goes up, and sell it to whomever without any fear of retribution. You cannot do that in a regulated securities market.
Pump and dump.
In a regulated securities market, you must give true, clear, complete information, and you cannot make misrepresentations. Otherwise, you'll be wearing pinstripes, not the suit type, okay? You'll be in jail. So that's the difference. And so it is a highly volatile, unregulated market that people need to be extremely careful about. And so as a regulator in a regulated market, I'm going to be very, very clear. People should stay the heck away from that unless they're prepared to use all of their money. Now, does that mean that you could go into it and make some money? Absolutely. Some people have, but a lot of people lose their shirt.
So a very strong stance on that one.
And I'll make a declaration. I too have tried to, and I've purchased cryptocurrency, and I did that with the expectation that I would lose all of it, and I just did it to see how it worked.
And that's a great point.
It is not an investment for me.
And that's a great point, and that's something I actually, I anytime I speak to anyone who may ask, I'm like, look, I'm not. Like I said before, I'm not, if you want to do it, by all means, but do not put anything in there that you will have a problem losing. This goes back to your example earlier. That's a level 10 pin, put it all of your money and you lose it. And we've seen, and listen, there are many, it may seem like there's a lot of success stories, but that's survivorship bias. There are many more horror stories of people who would have lost their money. So once again, if that's something you're interested in, do your research and don't put anything in there that you're not going to, you're going to have an issue with losing. But I like Keith's stance as well. So we'll end with that.
Yes. I recently watched a documentary on Netflix that brought to the fore some of the horror stories, and these horror stories were at price tags of $400,000, $1 million in losses. So you could check that out. But we get questions a lot about, can I buy Netflix? Can I buy Amazon? Can I buy some Facebook stock? Can Bahamians access the international markets? And how?
So there's two parts of that question. The answer is yes, you can, and the central bank has an avenue for you to take your Bahamian dollars, purchase US dollars, and then invest those dollars through what they call authorized agents. That is an avenue that you can go through.
The investment currency market.
Yeah, and so that is an avenue that you can do, but it takes a little longer. It's probably a little bit more expensive, and the timing takes a little bit longer.
I think the key part there is the add in the expense. I'll piggyback off of what you said. Yeah, Bahamians can, if they are so interested in purchasing, say Netflix or Apple or Google or whoever, you may be interested in. You can go into the central bank. They have this program, the investment currency market, which allows for Bahamians, like Keith pointed out, to take your Bahamian dollars and you can get foreign currency to use for investment purposes. At that point, like you said, you go through an authorized agent and they can, purchase these shares in these companies on your behalf. But what you do need to know is that when you've been approved and you go to exchange the money, they will charge you a 5% premium in order to get that cash. Now, the good part is when you bring the money back, I think there's a 2.5% rebate that they give back to you. So all in all, you end up spending 2.5% additional to make that happen. But if it's something that you so want to do, central bank does provide an avenue for that to happen.
However, there's a silver lining. Central bank many years ago, working with BISX, engaged in an exchange control liberalization program. And what that program was designed to do was to allow members, broker-dealer members of BISX to create, like RF. RF is doing it in spades. Yeah. They allow broker-dealers to access the capital markets abroad without having to pay that premium. And they then turn around and list those products on the exchange and make them available to Bahamians. So there are avenues through our broker-dealer members that can give you major advantages, again, using the professional investors to invest in stocks abroad.
Keith, you just gave me a segue. Thank you.
There you go.
Yes, to piggyback once again off what Keith is saying, yes, we do that, and by doing that, we have three what we call BSD to USD funds, where a Bahamian can come in with their Bahamian dollars and invest in a fund that is actually held in US dollars and invested. And is invested. It has exposure to a lot of the same companies, the Apples, the Googles, the Amazons, and all of those, and they'll have exposure to that. If that's something that someone wants to do, you can invest into our international equity sub fund, which through the exchange control liberalization, we are able to actually present that option to Bahamians.
Awesome. Let's talk about losses for a bit. There is a view that once you invest, you can lose, but somehow banking is safer. Can I, and this is a question that we got, can I lose all of my investment in a mutual fund?
The answer is, by its very nature, any investment can go up or down. The difference is that if you've done your homework and if you've analyzed the companies and looked at their history, the likelihood of that happening can be minimized.
Yeah.
Nothing can be eliminated in life, but you can minimize it to a level of certainty that gives you great confidence that what you're fearful of will not happen. And let's not let these banks off the hook. Banks fail.
You already pointed it out earlier, by the way.
A bank can fail, okay? And the central bank only insures about, if you've got $1 million in the bank and that bank fails, only 250,000 of that is insured. So yeah, it can happen. However, the likelihood of that happening, because the central bank is a wonderful regulator, they're on top of everything. They analyze, they review, there are thresholds that they monitor. So the likelihood of you losing your money in a Bahamian regulated commercial bank is low. But again, and also the last point I'll make, banks are for storage, okay? Banks are not investment material or vehicles. I'm sorry, that's not their job. They offer products that may facilitate some sort of earnings, but a savings account is not a top-level, high-level investment vehicle. It is not, because it is very low. And over time, the fee is probably higher than the interest that you're going to make.
Currently.
Yes. Are you getting any interest right now?
No.
No, exactly.
So that's the answer.
We have a question of, how do you get your project in front of serious investors?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. You know, the holy grail of investors are institutional. Yeah, an institutional investor typically is either a large company or a large body that has a collection of a pension fund, for example, collects money from its participants and then has to deploy that money for their benefit over a longer period of time. And so those types of persons, if you want to get in front of those persons, you've got to come to them with they have a certain criteria that you must meet. And remember, we talked about the value of being on a stock exchange. Many of the listings that we have, one of the key ingredients that they were seeking was that in order to get in front of an institutional investor, you know what the requirement was? That it be listed. Listing is a very high threshold of confidence in terms of information flow, access to information, and requirements of the company. So a listed company tells an institutional investor, this is a serious company and it does the right things in the marketplace, and it's worthy of me considering what they're offering to invest in. So that's one threshold. I don't know if you want to speak about something else, but that's one threshold that you get you in front of a serious investor.
We did not touch on it earlier. Earlier, we spoke about how to invest and how individuals and startups can invest. And we did discuss at that time that there's the individual and then there is the company. Let's discuss the fact that companies can also open investment accounts. Let's talk a bit about how companies could use investing perhaps to make additional profits from liquid cash they may have from good sales periods. Let's talk a bit about that.
I know we definitely over here we do allow for companies. We have corporate accounts where companies can come in, provided you provide us with all the necessary documentation that for your company. We can open up a corporate account for you, and we have seen situations where companies have taken maybe some additional earnings that they would have had. Maybe it was just sitting there and they were like, well, we want to invest this, and we've seen that occur. So that is definitely something that a company can do. If there's a company that's interested in doing that, we're fully capable of fulfilling those needs for them.
I want people to understand that, and this is I'm putting on my I'm a lawyer, so I put on my lawyer hat for a second. in law, a company is a person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so as a person, that person should do everything we talked about in terms of thinking about its future. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so whereas you invest in yourself, you buy additional products to sell, if you have additional monies that you don't pay out to the shareholders, you may want to take that and invest it in something that you see as being a worthwhile investment. And that could involve securities of another company as well. So that is a good thing to be thinking about. It is prudent, and it is something that the directors of that company should take as part of their strategy moving forward.
Awesome. It has been a wonderful discussion here. We got a lot of questions. Unfortunately, some of them we won't get to cover in this evening segment, but the conversation continues. Okay, so later on, I'm going to give you how you can connect with Keith, with Dominic, with myself, with BISX, and with RF, so that the conversation can continue offline, right? But in wrapping up, guys, closing words. I'll start with you, Keith. What do you want? What do you want to leave with our audience today?
I think the future is what you make of it. I think investing is something that everybody should consider. I think that you invest a lot of time and energy in your life in a number of things, and your financial future and your financial literacy is something that is not hard for you to do if you take the time. The resources are available. BISX is here, RF is here. And so I want people to invest in their futures. And if they do so, they will be better off for it. So that's what I really want to leave people with.
Dominic?
Well, since this is the end of Investor Week, and I think Keith has pretty much said a lot of it, but it really just comes down to, hoping and, the general public is more informed and aware of some of the investment options and opportunities that are available there. A lot of times I would go out, or if someone sees that I something's posted somewhere and I'm like, oh, you work here? Oh, I didn't know, we had these things available over here. And so for me, it's just more so people being more informed more aware of the opportunities that are available. They're also understanding that there's nothing scary or difficult about investing. You have people like myself, you have people like Jackie, Keith, we're all here, we're trying to like as Keith said earlier, demystify the idea of investing and make it seem more something that's more approachable for just the regular average Joe.
I'll have some closing words of my own. I think the only thing holding you back out there from investing is information. You can start today. Contact one of the BISX registered broker dealers and get the information you need and the guidance you need so that you can begin yesterday. Okay.
Very good.
To continue the conversation, please log on to www.rfgroup.com/Investor Week for more information. Also, follow RF Bank and Trust on all social media platforms and BISX Exchange on Facebook. We have come to the end of Investor Week and of our discussion today. If you missed any of this week's activities, please visit us at rfgroup.com/Investor Week to relive the moments. If you are ready to become an investor, reach out to us at invest@rfgroup.com to schedule an appointment with an expert advisor. Be sure to look out for Investor Week next year, where we will continue to give you the tools to create wealth for you and for future generations. Until next time, I'm Jackie Claire, that's Keith, and this is Dominique. Proudly sponsored, Investor Week was proudly sponsored by RF Bank Trust and Bahamas International Exchange. See you soon.
Bye, guys.
Take care.